Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to the homestead. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you the process of turning beef fat into tallow for cooking. And this process is called rendering. So it's a super easy, really awesome method to turn something that you wouldn't typically use into something extremely usable. Now I have this big bag of beef fat here. I started out with 8 pounds of it. I've already done one batch, so this is probably pretty close to 5 pounds. And the butcher that I got this from already separated the fat from the meat. So if you have that kind of source near you, it is really, really awesome. These guys sell beef fat for $1 a pound at the local butcher. And it's great because the cows are also local as well. So I know that they are grass-fed cows. They're very well taken care of, and it's an awesome resource to have here in our area. You can also use the fat that you take off of, like, say, a brisket or any other kind of beef that you are using. You just separate that fat from the meat when you're cooking it, and then you have it left over. So the butcher already did a really good job of separating the meat from the fat. There's a little bit left, and the first thing that I'm going to do is just cut it all up into like little chunks. That's going to make it a lot easier to cook. You want a nice sharp knife. So I like to do strips, and then I'm going to make it into chunks. So if you guys have never heard of rendering, it's totally okay. I really hadn't heard of it until extremely recently. But it's a super simple process of just melting down and turning this fat into a more clarified and like pure version of itself. And you use it in the kitchen. So I substitute tallow for anything that I would use butter or like vegetable or canola oil for. It has a very high smoke point, I think of about 420 degrees, so it's excellent for frying. Here in our house, we really enjoy homemade French fries, which you have to have some sort of oil in order to really make them good. You know, you can bake them or you can use an air fryer, but there's nothing quite like actual fried French fries. And I didn't love using canola oil and vegetable oil. That stuff is really not good for you. And so I came across tallow. I had been seeing it on my feed, on like Instagram and stuff. A lot of people are using it. And a lot of people have been using it for centuries, I'm sure. They figured out that they could turn this into something a bit more usable. So I tried it. We've been making French fries with it. I fry up like my pork chops. Anything that you use butter or oil for, you can use beef tallow. So I'm just cutting them into small little pieces. They probably don't even need to be this small. And then I'm putting them into my nice big Dutch oven. I'm going to be cooking outside. When you're rendering beef fat, it has a little bit of a smell, kind of like a meaty smell. It doesn't really stink. But in case you don't want to do it inside, it definitely does have a little bit of a smell to it. I don't think it's bad, but it's just easier to do it outside. So like with this, I would probably take this meat off just to separate it. We're going to filter it out anyways at the end, but I don't know, I might take it off, might just leave a lot of it. I got this extra bowl out here for the meat. But like I said, the butcher that I got this from did a pretty good job of separating the meat from the fat anyways. So I think I might just leave it. It's easier that way. I've read conflicting, I guess, like arguments about this actually being called tallow. Because traditionally, I believe tallow is more in reference to rendering the beef fat that is around the internal organs, or it's called suet. That is a much more like pure version of what I'm doing right now. It's a little bit harder to come by the suet. There's not as much of it in each animal. You know, it's in the internal organs. It's not really touching any meat. So it doesn't have that meat like flavor to it. That kind of tallow, using the suet, is what you would use for like candles or moisturizer, lotion, lip balm, stuff like that, where you don't want that meaty smell, and it's just a lot more pure, a lot more clean. Since I'm strictly going to be cooking with this tallow, I am perfectly okay with it being just normal beef fat from, you know, off the legs, off the shoulders, off all the other parts of the cow that the fat is attached to. If I did want to make some moisturizer or candles or something and I didn't want that meaty smell, I would have to go looking for the suet. But this is perfectly good just for this. So I'm cutting it up into pretty small pieces. This is an extremely simple process. Once you get the fat, you're already halfway there. You cut it up, and then once I have enough, I can fit quite a bit in here. We'll see how much I can get. I might end up having to do a couple batches, but we'll see how much I can get. It's an extremely simple process of just cooking it low and slow for about an hour, maybe a little bit more. This fat is going to turn into liquid. It's really cool. So I do still have some meat attached to this. I'm not worried about it. I'm gonna separate it and filter it out either way. I'm going to do just about this much for now. I don't want to put too much in here and cause it to be a little bit too crowded when it's cooking. Next, I'm going to put it on my burner here and just leave it on there for about an hour, very low setting, and we'll come back and check it in a few minutes once it starts to simmer. If you do use an outdoor cooker like me, you just want to be mindful that the wind could very well blow this out since it is on such a low setting. So I'll come back and check that. There's not much of a breeze right now, which is a good thing, but that's on there. It's low right now. I'll come back and check it once it really starts to bubble. All right, you can see that this is really starting to sizzle. The liquid is coming off of it right there. It's working perfectly. Just let that keep going. My beef fat has been simmering for about 35 minutes. I turned it off and I let it sit. It's been about 10 minutes just so it stops popping and bubbling. You can see that's like a nice yellow liquid. These pieces of fat have gotten really a lot smaller and are turning really crispy. So it's time to filter this out and get it really turned into tallow. So some people call these like cracklings. I think there's ways that you can season them and eat them. I'm just going to give them to the chickens. The chickens seem to really like them. I know there is stuff you can do with them. You can choose to or not. They're not going to taste good like this. I feel like they'd have a really terrible taste to them. They would need some salt and some other seasonings before they were good. So I'm just going to get all the big chunks out. You can see the pieces of meat that I didn't remove are still in there, but I wasn't worried about it because I knew I would be removing it. So this is just little chunks of meat and then those chunks of fat. I've got all my chunks removed and now it is time to get it into the jar. So I've got just a funnel here, wide mouth jar, and some cheesecloth. You can use cheesecloth, you can use like napkins or paper towels, anything that is going to filter out these tiny pieces that I couldn't get with my spoon. So we're gonna pour it in here and try not to make too big of a mess. You can see that right now this is a really yellow looking liquid and it's pretty interesting. Once I put this in the fridge and let it solidify, it's going to be like pure white, which I think is pretty cool. So this is ready to go. It's really hot right now, so I'll keep it in the fridge, cool it down. But when I go to use it, I'll take it out and just like use a knife or a spoon or something to get it out, put it in the pan, and it's ready to fry. So this is a really cool thing. I'm glad I learned how to do this. It's a great option if you have leftover beef fat, or maybe you're just looking for a healthier option to fry things that's not canola oil or vegetable oil or even butter. You can use this as a substitute for all of these things. I hope you guys learned something today. I really appreciate you watching. Please consider subscribing down below and we will see you in the next video.